Hello, welcome to today's lesson in the HESI Test Prep online series. Today we'll be talking about percent calculation, percent increase and decrease, simple interest, profit and loss, and price discount. Before we start, make sure to have a notebook and pencil on hand and download the HESI Test Prep app where you can find additional practice to support this lesson. You'll also find a free prediction test so you know exactly when you're ready to pass the actual test. Question 1. A fruit basket contains 12 apples, 8 oranges, and 5 bananas. What percentage of the fruits are oranges? So we're going to be comparing the number of oranges to the total number of fruit. Oranges, we have 8. The total fruit is going to be 12 apples plus 8 oranges plus 5 bananas, which is going to equal 25. We make a fraction, 8 over 25. To find a percent from this fraction, we're going to use long division. 8 is being divided, so it's going in the box. 25 is doing the dividing, so it's going outside the box. 25 goes into 8 0 times. We're going to add a decimal and some zeros. 25 goes into 80 3 times, which is 75. Subtract to get 5. Drop down your 0. 25 goes into 50 twice. Subtract again, we have no remainder, so we know we're done. We get 0.32. To turn that into a percent, we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right. 1, 2. And we get 32%. What is 10% of 10% of 100? So remember, of is going to mean multiplication in our word problems. So really we have 10% times 10% times 100. Okay, we could turn those into decimals, but we should know that 10% of 100 is just going to be 10. So now we have 10% of 10. And we should know that 10% of 10 is just going to be 1. If 6 is 25% of a number, what is 50% of the same number? So first we're going to have to find out what that number is. So we're going to turn this first part of our problem into an equation. 6 means equals 25%. Let's turn that 25% into a decimal by moving this guy 2 places to the left. We have 0.25. So 0.25 of means multiplication, and n for now we will call n. Okay, we have 0.25 times n. We should know that 0.25 is equal to the fraction 1/4. So this is 1/4 n. Now to get that n all by itself, we need to multiply by the reciprocal of 1/4, which is going to be 4/1. We need to do that to both sides of our equation. These will cancel out because 1/4 times 4/1 equals n. Now on the left side, we have 4/1 times 6, which is 4 times 6 equals 24. Right now we're asking what is 50% of that number. 50% is just half. Half of 24 is going to be 12. Question 4. Paula is taking the arithmetic reasoning subtest, which contains 30 questions. She wants to get at least 25 of the questions right in order to score well on the FAQT. What percent of the questions does she need to answer correctly? Okay, so this question is asking us, what is 25 out of 30 as a percent? So let's write 25 over 30. Okay. We see that 25 and 30 end in a 5 and a 0 respectively. That tells us that both of those numbers can be divided by 5, which reduces our fraction to 5 over 6. Now we'll need to turn that into a decimal using long division. 5 is being divided, it's going in the box. 6 is doing the dividing, it's going outside the box. 6 does not fit in inside of 5. Let's add a decimal and some zeros. 6 goes into 50 8 times. 6 times 8 is 48. Subtract, you get 2. Bring down our 0. 6 goes into 23 times. 3 times 6 is 18. We get a 2. We make another 0 here. We're going to get 20 again. And so we see that this pattern is going to repeat forever. We're just going to get more and more 3s. Let's move that decimal 2 places to the right to turn that into a percent. That's going to give us 83.3 repeating percent. Because again, that 3 is going to go on forever. We're going to keep getting 3. The price of a car increased from $21,399 to $22,999 over last year's model. What was the approximate percentage increase? So to find the percentage increase, first we're going to need to find the dollar increase. So we're going to subtract the price of the old model from the price of the new model. Nine minus 9 is 0. 9 minus 9 is 0. 9 minus 3 is 6. 2 minus 1 is 1. 2 minus 2 is 0. So our price increase is $1,600. So now we're going to compare that to the original price, which was $21,399. I want to find what percent 1,600 is of that original $21,399. So I'm going to do 1,600 divided by 21,399. Okay, let's make this a little bit easier on ourselves by getting rid of those zeros. We will divide the numerator and the denominator by 100, giving us 16 over 213.99. Put our decimal here because it moved 2 places to the left once we divided by 100. And we'll simplify that, just rounding to 16 over 214. So this is going to give us an approximate answer. 16 is being divided. It's going inside of our box. 214 is doing the dividing. It's going to go outside. 214 does not go into 1 or 16. Decimal, add some zeros. 214 does not go into 160, so we'll need another 0. I know 214 times 8 would be more than 1600 because 200 times 8 would be 1600. So this number here is going to be 7. And actually, that's more than enough for our answer. So we have 0.07. We're going to get more stuff here. There's going to be more values here. But if I move my decimal 2 places, I can see this is going to be 7 point something 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 percent. Looking at my answers, that can only be C. So these are some ways we can speed things up in a timed test by approximating. Question 6. Bailey loaned Robin $1,500 at a simple annual interest rate of 7%. If she repays the loan after 2 years, how much would she have to pay? So we're going to need to find 7% of 1,500. That's our first step. Seven percent of 1,500. I move this invisible decimal place 2 places to the left. Fill in the 0. We get 0.07. Let's turn that into a multiplication sign. Times 1,500. Okay. Another trick here to speed things up is to ignore the decimal and the zeros in this multiplication problem. So we can turn this into 15 times 7. 5 times 7 is 35. Put a 5 here. 3 goes on top. 1 times 7 is 7. Plus 3 is 10. Nowhere to carry the 1, so we'll write our entire 10 down here. Okay. So because we multiplied by 15 instead of 1,500, we have to account for these 2 zeros. So we're going to add them down here. Okay. And then because this was 0.07 and not just 7, we have to account for the fact that 7 is 2 places to the right of the decimal, which is going to make our product smaller by 2 decimal places. Move the decimal back. So our final answer is 105 each year. So each year we're going to pay $105 in interest. We're paying this for 2 years, so we're going to do 105 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 0 times 2 is 0. Plus 1 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. So we're paying $210. The question asks us how much we have to pay, which is going to include that $1,500. We have to pay the $1,500 back. So we're going to add the $210 in interest to that $1,500 which we borrowed. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 5 plus 2 is 7. Bring down the 1. Our answer is $1,710. Question 7. If 40% is equal to the fraction x over 30, what is the value of x? So we have 40% equals the fraction x over 30. Okay. Whenever we do any kind of operations with addition, subtraction, percents, decimals, we need to turn our percents into decimals. We cannot do operations on percents unless it's percent to percent. So I'm going to turn this 40% into a decimal by moving this guy 2 places to the left. Okay, this becomes 0.4 equals x over 30. We have x divided by 30. We want x by itself, so we're going to need to get rid of that. And we're going to do that by multiplying 30. So we're going to multiply both sides by 30. If we're dividing x by 30 and then multiplying by 30, we end up with just x. Those are going to cancel out because multiplication and division will always undo each other. So here we're left with x. And on this side we have 30 times 0.4. Okay, same trick as before. Ignore the 0, ignore the decimal. We're going to do 3 times 4. That's 12. Okay. Now we'll account for the fact that this was 30 and not 3. We have this 0 here, so we're going to add a 0 here. And now account for the fact that the 4 is one place to the right of the decimal. That's going to make our product one place to the decimal smaller. So it's going to bring us back to the left. Okay. So we multiplied by 4. 0.4 is smaller than 4. So we're going to move the decimal again one place to the left. So we end up with 12. So x is 12. A shirt that was priced at $48 is now selling for $36. What percentage is deducted? So they gave us dollars and they're asking us about a percent. So the first thing we're going to do is find out how much was deducted in dollars. And then we're going to turn that into a percent. 48 minus 36. 8 minus 6 is 2. 4 minus 3 is 1. So our price decreased by $12. Now if we want to know what percentage that is, we're going to compare that to the original price, which was $48. So we're going to do 12 divided by 48. Both of these numbers are divisible by 12. 12 divided by 12 equals 1. 48 divided by 12 equals 4. We know that 1 over 4, just like a quarter of a dollar is 25 cents. So that equals 0.25. And if we want to turn that decimal into a percent, we're going to move this guy 2 places to the right, which gives us 25%. If 700 people are at the concert and 70% are adults, how many children are there? Okay, so if 70% are adults, then the remaining 30% must be children. So 30% are children. So the question is really asking us, what is 30% of 700? $700 times 30%. We'll need to turn that percent into a decimal. We'll do that by moving this guy 2 places to the left. So we have 700 times 0.3. Ignore the decimal, ignore the zeros. 7 times 3 is 21. Now we have to account for these 2 zeros. We multiplied by 700, not 7. So we're going to add these 2 zeros. And now let's account for the fact that this 3 is one place to the right of the decimal, which would make our product smaller. So we move the decimal in the opposite direction, move it to the left. Final answer, 210. A bank is offering 4.2% simple interest on saving accounts. How much interest will the bank pay on $20,000 in 2 years? Okay, so we're starting with 4.2%. We need to turn that into a decimal. We'll move this 2 places to the left, fill in the 0. 4.2% equals 0.042. Since we want to find what 4.2% of 20,000 is, we're going to multiply. So we'll be doing that 0.042 times 20,000. We'll do that right over here. Ignore the zeros, ignore the decimals. So we have 42 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Let's count these zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll add those here. Now we multiplied by 42, so really we move this decimal 3 places to the right, which is going to make our product smaller by 3 decimal places to the left. Okay, so we have 840. So $840 is how much interest we paid in 1 year. Again, we're paying for 2 years, so we're going to need to multiply that by 2. So 840 times 2. We'll do 84 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. We have to account for the 0. We're going to add that right here. So our final answer is $1,680. Question 11. If 16% of a number is 80, then what is 80% of that number? Okay, so this is a two-part question. We'll start with the first part. 16% of a number is 80. Turn that into an equation. First, let's turn 16% into a decimal by moving this guy 2 places over. That's going to give us 0.16. We have 16% or 0.16 of, meaning multiplication, a number, we'll call that n for now, is means equals, and 80. We have 0.16 times n. We want to get n by itself, so remember before we used multiplication to cancel out division. This time we're going to use division to cancel out multiplication. So let's divide by 0.16 divide by 0.16. These will cancel out because a number divided by itself will always just be 1, so that's going to give us 1n, or just n. Okay, now we want to do 80 divided by 0.16. We don't want to divide by a decimal, so we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 100. Why can we do this? Because 100 over 100 is just 1. So we're not changing our problem at all. We're multiplying a number by 1, and doing that is going to change how the number looks, but it's not going to change what that number really is. So we have 80 times 100. Easy enough. We're going to add 2 zeros for our 100. And then for our denominator, we'll move the decimal place to the right 2 times. So we have 16. Now we could do long division, but again, we have a simple trick. We see an 8 in the numerator and a 16 in the denominator, which tells us we can divide by 8. 8,000 divided by 8 is going to be 1,000. 16 divided by 8 is going to be 2. 1,000 divided by 2 is going to be 500. Okay, so all of this comes out to n equals 500. Now the question is asking us, what is 80% of that number? So what's 80% of 500? 80% we can turn into a decimal by moving this 2 places to the left. So we have 80% or 0.8 of, meaning multiplication. That number is 500. We want to know what this equals. So I'll do it over here now. We'll do 5 times 8 equals 40. Let's account for these two zeros by adding them over here. And let's account for the fact that we multiplied by 8 instead of 0.8. We move the decimal one place to the right, which is going to make our answer bigger than what it actually is. So to account for that, we're going to move our decimal one place to the left. So we end up with 400. "20 ounces of a drink mixture contain 20% fruit juice and 80% water. It is further diluted by adding 20 ounces of additional water. What is the percent of fruit juice in the diluted mixture?" Okay, so to start out, we're going to need to find out how much fruit juice and how much water was in the original mixture. So we started out with 20 ounces of a drink. 20% of that drink was fruit juice. Move the decimal twice to the left. 20% equals 0.2. So 20 times 0.2. And do 2 times 2. Account for the 0. Account for the fact that the 2 is one place to the right of the decimal, which means we're going to move out this decimal one place to the left, which means we had 4 ounces of juice in the original mixture. Now let's calculate how much water we had in the original mixture. We started with 20 ounces of a drink, and 80% of that was water. Move the decimal twice to the left, and 80% equals 0.8. 20 times 0.8, we'll do 2 times 8 is 16. Let's account for the 0, add it right here. We had one number to the right of the decimal here, which means we're going to move this invisible decimal one place to the left, 16. So we started out with 16 ounces of water. In the second sentence, we learned that our drink was diluted by adding 20 ounces of additional water. So we're going to add 20 right here. So 36 ounces of water. What is the percent of fruit juice in the diluted mixture? So now we're going to be comparing that same amount of fruit juice, because that didn't change, to the new amount of water and figuring out what our new percentage is. So we had 4 ounces of juice in 36 ounces of water. Can reduce this fraction by dividing the numerator and the denominator by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 36 divided by 4 is 9. We'll do long division to find out what this fraction is going to equal as a percent. 1's being divided, it's going to go in the box. 9 is doing the dividing, it's going to go outside the box. 9 does not go inside 1, so we're going to add a decimal and some zeros. 9 goes into 10 one time. 1 times 9 is 9. Ten minus 9 is 1. Bring down a 0. 9 goes into 10 one time. 1 times 9 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1, and you can see we're going to get this repeating pattern once again. Let's bring the decimal here. Okay, so our answer is 0.1 repeating. It's going to go on forever. To turn that into a percent, we'll move the decimal 2 places to the right, which leaves us with 11 0.1 repeating percent, which is approximately answer A. Each year, a restaurant's rent is adjusted to the cost of living index. The rent has been $2,150 a month, and the cost of living index for this August was 3.7%. What is the new rent per month? So we're going to have a percent increase of 3.7. So let's do 3.7%. Turn that into a decimal by moving this guy 2 places to the left. Fill in our 0. So 3.7% equals 0.037. We're going to multiply that by 2150. 0.037 times 2150. Okay, we'll do that off to the right. Ignore the zeros. 215 times 37. 5 times 7 is 35. Carry the 3. 1 times 7 is 7. Plus 3 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 7 is 14. Plus 1 is 15. Let's cross out those numbers we carried. Cross out the 7 because we're done with that. Add a 0 down here because now we're multiplying in the tens place. That 3 is in the tens place. 5 times 3 is 15. Carry the 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Plus 1 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. Add 5 plus 0 is 5. 0 plus 5 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9. And 1 plus 6 is 7. Okay, account for the 0 by adding a 0 here. Account for the fact that we have 1, 2, 3 numbers to the right of the decimal place by moving this decimal place 1, 2, 3 places to the left. And we find that 3.7% of 2150 is $79.55. So $79.55 is going to be our increase. So let's add that to the rent we were already paying, which was $21.50. Okay, we don't have a decimal at the end of this 2150, but it's always there, it's just invisible. 0, 0, and here we have 5, 5. Add these together, 0 plus 5 is 5, 0 plus 5 is 5. Bring our decimal down, 0 plus 9 is 9, 5 plus 7 is 12, carry the 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, and bring down the 2. So our answer is $2,229.55. Dan paid $880 for an iPhone that had 12% discount. What was the original price of the iPhone? Okay, so if the discount was 12%, that means we paid 88% of the original price. Right? We start with 100%. We had a discount of 12%. We're working in percents right now. 100 minus 12 is 88. Okay, so that means 88% of the original price, which we'll call P, equals the price Dan paid, which is $880. So let's turn that into an equation. We'll start by turning 88% into a decimal. This equals 0.88. So 0.88 times our original price, which we'll call P, equals $880. We want to get that p by itself. We'll undo the multiplication happening here by dividing. So we'll divide by 0.88. Divide by 0. Make sure you score at least 80% on the practice test before moving on to the next lesson. Thank you for your time. These by 100. Again, 100 over 100 is just 1. So I'll write that 880. Add 2 zeros because we just multiplied by 200. We multiply the denominator by 100, which moves the decimal twice to the right, eliminating a decimal. Okay. And now we have 88,000 divided by 88. Okay. We'll divide out 88, so 88,000 divided by 88 is just 1,000. So therefore, P equals 1,000. Question 15. In a restaurant, Bob orders an entree for $15.60, dessert for $4.50, coffee for $1.15, and a water bottle for 75 cents. If the sales tax on meals is 8%, what tax should be added to his check? So we need to start out by finding the total cost of his meal, which is going to be the sum of all of those things that he bought. So we'll do $15.60 plus $4.50 plus $1.15 plus 75 cents. Notice that I lined up all of my decimals. That makes sure that all of my other places are lined up. So my ones, my tens, my tenths, my hundredths are all lined up if I make sure that my decimals are lined up when I set the problem up. Add these together. 0 plus 0 plus 5 plus 5 is 10. 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 5 is 12, plus 1 is 13, plus 7 is 20. So we'll write the 0 here, carry the 2. 2 plus 5 is 7, 7 plus 4 is 11, 11 plus 1 is 12. Write the 2 here, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Our decimal follows right here. So the total price of the meal was $22. The sales tax was 8%. What is 8% as a decimal? Move this over twice. And 8% equals 0.08. Now we're going to do $22 times 0.08. Ignore the zeros, ignore the decimal. Do 22 times 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17. We had 2 numbers to the right of our decimal place. 1, 2. So we're going to move this decimal place 2 places to the left. 1, 2. We get $1.76. We paid $1.76 in sales tax. Okay. Here are the solutions typed out. You can study these on your own time. And once again, I'd like to remind you to download the HESI Test Prep app where you'll find homework practice,